Councillor Kuzner.
Thank you very much, Lord Provost, and good morning, everyone. It's with regret that we feel that we need to be here today looking to remove Councillor Allard as co-leader. It's nothing personal, and I genuinely do mean that. I get on with Councillor Allard fine. I just don't believe, and many of the general public don't believe, that he is the right person to be leading this council. And a lot of that flows from his actions over RAC and over previous issues. If we could just look on RAC, Lord Provost, which is what my amendment, or my motion even, really focuses on. We had a crisis within his own ward, within my own ward, where we have salt of the earth people who have worked hard to buy something of their own, and they were seeing the risk of that being demolished and a tiny amount of their capital being recovered. For many people, that would have meant a fundamental change in their life, and it was only because of the campaigns of those people that we are now seeing more money going to them. It wasn't because of the co-leader. He didn't put his shoulder to the grindstone to push for those affected residents within his own ward. Until last month, or 2 months ago, he was pushing for the bare legal minimum for them to accept that this was the only option for them. We had a meeting on the 21st of October where there was a requisition meeting to discuss this, to discuss the £10 million fund and how this could be used. The administration had no amendment. They weren't going to be offering anything extra to the RAC affected of Tory. Yet, after a disastrous media round at Greyhope Bay, someone in SNP High Command must have picked up the phone and said, "What are you doing? We've given you this fund, you've got to help these people." Because a week later, on the 28th of October, we had an amendment actually bringing forward some change. But this could have been done previously. It wasn't done despite, at the heights of our council co-leadership, having a councillor who is representing that RAC-affected community and could have pushed that change. And I think that is where we are, Lord Provost. It is a failure of leadership, not just for Tory, but for the city, because that is what people are expecting from our council co-leaders. And we also saw that yesterday, Lord Provost, when we had the judgment in terms of the Busgates court action, where none of the co-leaders were available for interview. They hadn't read the judgment. It's only 20 pages long, and they had it before anyone else. They could have had a briefing from officers. So it's this failure of leadership over a pattern of issues, and RAC is the one which I have focused it on, but we saw that yesterday. There was no leadership in Busgate, something which they have pushed for, yet when there is a judgment, they are running scared. The disdain for the public in failing to advocate their position, which they have pushed against the business community and many in this city. To not be available to comment is a disdain for our citizens and a failure of leadership. And again, unfortunately, this is part of a pattern of conduct of the co-leader. We saw this on Big Noise Tory, when it was voted to be defunded by his own administration, yet when he was a member of the Scottish Parliament, he was heaping praise on it. He heaped praise on it when he was a councillor. But then he happily votes it to be defunded. And then when it is saved by the Scottish Government, he's applauding it. You know, it's unbelievable if it was not true. And again, we have the same on St Fittick's Park and the Energy Transition Zone, where we have a changing of views, a telling of people within your community that you stand with them, but then saying, "Oh no, we can't do anything about it because officers have told me that I need to vote for this and we need to build on St Fittick's Park." Again, this pattern of conduct, Lord Provost, is indicative of someone who is not standing up for the constituents. And this is a community within our city who need that support. We've seen that on RAC. People of other political parties and no political parties were saying, let's do more, let's do better for our citizens. But we had the co-leader, who is one of their councillors, simply saying that we can only do the bare minimum. You know, it's all up to officers. It's all very difficult. And keep going back to referencing this sort of congratulatory tone that it had been very hard for the administration and they had done quite a lot for tenants. Yes, but this failure to advocate for some of the most vulnerable people and in such a tough situation is not what we need in terms of the leadership in our city. And therefore, Lord Provost, it is with regret that we feel we have to take forward this motion to remove Councillor Allard because, Lord Provost, we need real leadership within this city. We're one of Scotland's biggest cities. We should be a proud city. We should be proud of our leadership, and we should have a leadership who represent the most vulnerable people in our city. They don't turn their back on them. They don't tell them that this is all we can do. They put their shoulder to the grindstone and they do everything that they can. And it is disgraceful. It is shocking that we have seen this failure to advocate for the RAC-affected communities. And therefore, Lord Provost, the co-leader needs to go.
Thank you.